0612 hours, East China Sea. The early morning horizon over the East China Sea was calm, painted in soft orange. As the sun rose over contested waters, the Japanese Maritime Self-Defense Force destroyer JS Suzutsuki, an Akizuki-class vessel, cut through the waves at a steady 15 knots. Inside the Combat Information Center, the watch team monitored a cluster of radar contacts, Chinese naval vessels sailing in proximity to the Senkaku Islands, a region claimed by both Tokyo and Beijing. Then, a sensor technician stiffened. "Chief, one of the contacts just changed profile." The officer in charge leaned in. The symbol on the screen was unmistakable. A Chinese Type 052D destroyer, the Luoyang 3 class, heavily armed, highly aggressive, and getting closer. The strange approach, 0616 hours. The Chinese destroyer adjusted course, slowly but deliberately, sliding into the Suzutsuki's forward arc. The officer of the deck narrowed his eyes. "They're not giving way. This isn't routine transit." The Suzutsuki maintained course, disciplined and controlled, but inside the CIC tension thickened. The radar chief murmured, "That 052D is moving like it wants to test us." The intel officer added, "This is the same hull type that allegedly locked radar on a JMSDF helicopter years ago." That incident remained diplomatically disputed, with both sides offering conflicting accounts, and much of the information remains unverified to this day. But today's behavior felt eerily similar. The first warning sign, 0621 hours. A tone blipped on the console. "Sir, Chinese radar has shifted. They're using a higher frequency band." The radar chief zoomed in. "That's their Type 346 AAESA panel. It's powering up more than normal." The officer of the deck frowned. "Are they trying to illuminate us?" The intel officer shook his head. "No, that frequency is getting close to—" He stopped mid-sentence. Every operator in the room turned simultaneously. The console emitted a sharp, chilling alert. "Incoming illumination detected. Foreign fire control radar active." The radar locked. 0623 hours. A cold whisper filled the room. "They're painting us." The Chinese destroyer had activated fire control radar. The radar used to guide missiles to their target. This wasn't a mistake. This wasn't a miscalibration. It was a threat, a deliberate one. The Japanese captain of the Suzutsuki immediately ordered, "General quarters, all hands to battle stations." Alarms erupted throughout the destroyer. Crew members sprinted to stations. Missile crews manned consoles. Engineers prepped the ship for high-speed maneuvers. This wasn't a drill, the deadliest moment at sea. On every naval vessel, there is one moment colder than any other, when a fire control radar locks onto your ship, because that means one thing: a missile launch could be seconds away. The Suzutsuki's electronic warfare officer finally said it. "Sir, this is a full lock. Not tracking, not searching. This is firing position." The captain clenched his fists. "Hold our weapons cold. Do not escalate." The exec officer whispered, "They're daring us to fire the first shot. Unverified. Chinese internal directive." Unverified OSINT claims from earlier this year suggested Chinese commanders were instructed to apply pressure on Japanese vessels near contested zones. No official confirmation ever surfaced, but the 052D's actions today felt like an execution of that very directive. The Suzutsuki responds, 0626 hours. The Japanese destroyer's systems lit up. Anti-missile interceptors, armed CRAM tracking, anti-submarine alert, raised phalanx CIWS spinning, but everything remained on standby. Japanese naval doctrine demands restraint, no matter how close the threat. The captain radioed Japan's Maritime Operations Center. "Be advised, we are under fire control lock by Chinese destroyer, 052D class, range 8.4 kilometers. The reply came instantly. "Do not provoke, hold defensive readiness, record everything." The second lock, suddenly, the console chirped again. "Sir, Chinese radar just adjusted elevation." The radar chief swallowed. "They're refining the firing solution." The entire CIC fell silent. Every sailor knew what that meant. A missile launch was now one command away. Then, the Chinese destroyer's course shifted again. It was moving into a position where its HHQ-9B long-range missiles had optimal trajectory. The intel officer whispered, "They're posturing for a launch envelope." The captain inhaled slowly. "Prepare countermeasures. Activate ECM. Low power. No aggressive signals." The ship went darker, quieter, colder. In the captain's mind, the Japanese captain faced a nightmare scenario. If he fired preemptively, Tokyo would be condemned. If he hesitated too long, Beijing might believe Japan was weak. If a missile launched, the Suzutsuki would have seconds to respond. Every decision could spark a war. He murmured quietly, "Do not let fear decide. Do not let pride decide. Let discipline decide." The Chinese silence. 0631 hours. The radar tone suddenly changed. The fire control lock dropped, but only for a heartbeat. "Stand by." They're switching modes. The console lit red again. The officer of the deck yelled, "Second lock. They've locked us again." The crew braced. The captain stared straight ahead. "Hold your positions. We do not initiate." The sky changes. Then, out of nowhere, the lookout on the bridge shouted, "Aircraft, fast movers, bearing 210. Two People's Liberation Army J-16 fighter jets swept low over the Suzutsuki. The CIC erupted in chaos. The captain whispered, "This just escalated to another dimension." Because a radar lock was one thing, but adding strike fighters to the picture meant something far more dangerous. China wasn't testing Japan anymore. China was surrounding it. The J-16 dived 0633 hours East China Sea. The two Chinese J-16 strike fighters banked sharply, slicing through the sky above the JS Suzutsuki. Their engines thundered, drowning out the sea wind. The radar chief shouted, "Air contact spiking us. They're scanning our air defense systems." The captain gritted his teeth. The destroyer was now locked by a Chinese warship, buzzed by strike fighters, and boxed in near the Senkaku Islands. The intel officer whispered, "Sir, this is coordinated ship-to-air harassment protocol." Unverified OSINT reports have claimed China trains for multi-axis intimidation, combining radar locks, aggressive flyovers, and close proximity sailing to pressure Japanese forces. Today felt like a textbook execution of that doctrine. The fighter pass. One J-16 screamed directly overhead. The lookout nearly fell back from the shockwave. CIC alarms blared. Aircraft at 300 feet. They're intentionally flying below safe intercept altitude. Japanese doctrine prohibits firing unless a direct attack is confirmed. China knew this and exploited it. The electronic warfare officer called out, "Jets are attempting to trigger our tracking systems. They want us to lock onto them." The captain replied, "And we won't." The Chinese destroyer closes in. 0635 hours. The Chinese 052D destroyer closed the distance to under 5 kilometers, practically point blank. The radar tone changed again. Another fire control lock. The Suzutsuki shook as a concentrated radar beam hit the ship's forward superstructure. The exec officer clenched his jaw. This is harassment at its most dangerous form. The captain responded, "It's also extremely reckless. One misread signal, and someone fires." Unverified Chinese radio transmission. Suddenly, the signals officer perked up. "Sir, we're detecting encrypted radio bursts between the J-16s and the destroyer." The intel officer leaned in. Content was indecipherable, but the timing and bursts suggested a coordinated maneuver. Unverified OSINT rumors previously claimed Chinese aircraft and warships use stacked pressure waves. One unit intimidates from above, while the other applies radar lock from below. Today, it felt real. Japan responds quietly. 0637 hours. The Suzutsuki's captain finally made his move. Bring the ship to condition red shield. Activate ECM suite, non-aggressive mode. Japan's electronic countermeasures flickered to life. A faint hum vibrated through the mast. The radar chief reported, "Chinese fire control lock is degrading. They're losing clarity." But then, a harsh flash filled the bridge window. The 052D had turned broadside, exposing its full missile banks. The intel officer whispered, "They're showing their teeth." The near miss. Above, a J-16 dove sharply, too sharply. Its wingtips sliced dangerously close over the Suzutsuki's bow. The lookout screamed, "Jet at 50 feet, almost collided." The entire CIC froze. A collision could trigger a regional crisis instantly. The exec officer muttered, "That pilot wants to provoke something. Anything." The captain shook his head. "No, they want us to blink first." Then the radar chief shouted, 052D just increased power. Full fire control illumination. The ship's lights dimmed as the radar flood slammed into them. The Suzutsuki's stand, 06 0640 hours, the Japanese captain made the riskiest decision of the morning. He ordered, "Helm, come starboard 5, bring us directly toward their destroyer." The bridge crew froze. The Suzutsuki was turning straight into the path of the Chinese warship. The exec officer whispered, "Sir, we're moving into a collision vector." The captain responded, "They want to intimidate. We show we won't run." It was bold, borderline insane, and precisely the kind of maneuver designed to disrupt enemy confidence. The stare down, 0642 hours. Both ships closed distance, 5 kilometers, 4 kilometers, 3.5 kilometers. Every radar operator on both sides waited for the slightest misinterpretation. A missile lock, a wrong turn, a trigger pull. Then, at 3.4 kilometers, the Chinese fire control lock suddenly dropped. The radar chief shouted, "They broke lock." The crew stared in disbelief. The Chinese destroyer abruptly slowed. The J-16 stopped diving, pulling up into a holding pattern at higher altitude. The aggressive posture was collapsing. The exec officer murmured, "They're backing off," but the intel officer interrupted, "No, they're repositioning." The mystery signal, 0644 hours. The signals officer snapped his head up. "Sir, we just intercepted a burst transmission from the Chinese destroyer. Unknown code, not from the pilots, not from the fleet. This is separate." The intel officer frowned. "What kind of signal?" The operator shook his head. "It's directional, broadcasting east." The captain narrowed his eyes. "To whom?" Before anyone could answer, the radar chief suddenly shouted, "New contact, high speed, bearing 085. Everyone froze. A massive blip appeared on the radar. The shape was unmistakable. A Japanese F-35B, coming in fast. The sky turns Japanese blue, 0646 hours. The F-35B streaked overhead, silent, predatory, invisible to Chinese radars until the last second. The J-16 pilots panicked. Their formation broke instantly. The radar lit up as the Chinese fighters scrambled. The intel officer whispered, "That was the message. The Chinese destroyer warned its jets because they saw the F-35 before they did." Japan's stealth fighter circled once, then locked onto the J-16 formation from above. Japan had flipped the script. The Chinese retreat, 0648 hours. The 052D destroyer slowed dramatically. Its radar shifted from fire control mode to standard surveillance. Then it turned away. The J-16 fighters pulled back, retreating to the west. The Suzutsuki held its course, unmoving, unshaken. The exec officer exhaled. "It's over." The intel officer added, "They tested us, and we didn't fall for it." The captain looked out over the waves. "They thought intimidation would work." He paused. "But Japan doesn't back down in its own waters."